Alright, we have parts. This is all to do the front end here on the wagon, and I got pretty much bushings, shocks, control arms. All of this should take care of a little bit of alignment issues that I've been dealing with. Get this all straightened out. This wagon driving nice. Nice, got a little magnet. There we go, everything to put the whole front end together. Mavitec bushings, KYB XLG shocks, Dorman control arms for the lower. They don't really make any affordable parts to replace the front control arms. And since I already had one of the other control arms, it was cheaper to just get the other control arm here for the lower. And I've ran these shocks before, they're really good, so I'm gonna continue running them on the wagon. And we got all the tools out, get ready to tear both sides apart and put the fresh parts in. Go ahead and we'll get started. Stuff that and take off these plastic shields here, because the moment you undo the ball joint here, it's gonna shoot down and get caught on the bottom end of this, and that's not a good thing. So we'll go ahead and we'll work on that now. 10 millimeter. That's a little. The reason why all of this is being done, because all of this has been replaced, but it must have been at least 20 years since it was last touched. Recently, I've been starting to develop issues of vibration and the wheel suddenly wandering in a different direction than the way I'm going. So if I'm going straight, it'll suddenly go right, and if I'm holding the wheel to the right, it'll straighten up and send me back left. One of the control arm bushings on the passenger side lost a good deal of rubber, and the control arm is shifting on the bar that it sits on. Figured it'd be time to finally get to this and start tearing all this out. I figured instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this all out of the whole unit. I still am going to have to drop the lower control arm so I can get the spring out. The jack here is holding the control arm in place. As of this moment, all of this is loose. And now, there's not much holding it on. Oh, that's nice. And it goes right towards the spring. So this is a, this is the nut, and it's got a little plate on here because this is supposed to stay in place underneath. And for some reason, this fell out. Last time I ever worked on any of these cars, this little nut would stay in place. I'm gonna have to remove the steering and the knuckle if I want to remove this all as a whole. Alright, so I'm going to see if I can try to save the thread on this tie rod by using a block here. Oh! So, yeah, this is all coming off. I might as well check the availability on some tie rod ends. I think we're just going to have to do that. Destroy the nut, destroy the thread, all of the above, yada yada yada. If you got a nut or a bolt that won't come off, more than likely that's the last one you need to touch to finish the job. Every other nut and bolt you will touch, it'll be okay. It's until you get to that last one that trouble starts to arise. There we go. So in here somewhere I got our 3/8 socket. Put it on impact, and hopefully I'll be able to just buzz this nut off really quick. Yeah, looks like it'll live. Only thing that's holding this in here is just this jack. Hopefully I don't die in the next 10 seconds. Oh, still here. It's probably gonna be a worn out spring. Oh, no. Nope, it's got pressure under it. Note to self, bottle jacks aren't the recommended jack to use underneath the control arm when doing this. It's always going to be floor jack. Okay, so I'm not sure how much of that was lost because I had a low battery, but as you see, we have the control arm down, the spring is out. Next move to be will be trying to get that knuckle to come off the lower control arm here. Then we got 2 bolts and 2 nuts, and all of this should just pull right out. So now I have the spindle on this jack that's gonna hold it in place because I need to hit this ball joint so I can get this to split from the control arm. And after that, I'm gonna need to find a way to split the ball joint from the top part of the spindle. So it's gonna be a little loud here. Unlike the tie rod end, this one doesn't have to be salvaged since a new control arm comes with a new ball joint. So we could just hit this all day long until this comes out. There we go. Alright, now we do that with the other control arm here. Take this one out, put the fresh one in, and put it all back together. We should be done in like an hour.
6.5 hours later.
We have that bolt joint. We have this cotter pin that we gotta pull out, and then we can continue pulling this apart. There we go. Of course. There you go. There we go. Now this one's gonna be even more fun because unlike the lower, I don't have any way of putting this on leverage and just letting that easily come loose. I'll probably be working on this one for a moment. Never mind. So we're taking all this off here, replacing the bushings, and we're undoing the ball joint up here. If these cars, if they haven't been worked on, these ball joints are always riveted in from factory. So in most cases you would have to find a way to get these out with rivets. But this one is already done. It's got nuts and bolts and the usual hardware that holds it in place, makes it easier to swap out. Alright, so we'll go ahead. We've got a 13/16 here, and I'm gonna try to start getting this control arm out. And we can walk this off by finger. Yeah, there we go. Alright. There's one. And there's helicopters. They found me. I'm done. Oh, wait. Oh! That's nice. Yeah, I ain't gonna do anything. So underneath here, you got this bolt, and this bolt comes out right exactly where the sway bar goes. And you can either drop it, or just like I did here, just tilt it down some and work it out. A little bit of work. There we go. Lower control arm out, upper control arm out. I think we'll go ahead and we'll do the passenger side. And once we get the passenger side out, we'll start on cleaning up that control arm, a little bit of that spindle, put the fresh parts on that, and put these fresh control arms on the bottom.
Eventually.
Alright, I went ahead just a tad and I removed the nuts and washers from the sides, and oh my goodness, check this out. This thing is so bad. Look at this. That all just comes out dipped with a capital dip. My side here, the bushing just was in such a bad way that it basically took out rubber from this section and pushed this inward actually. So if this was adjusted, it would not be 100%. Right now, all of these bushings are coming out. The ball joint's gonna get undone, and then we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna pull this little bumper here off, and we're gonna clean it up. And I think we might actually do something a little fun here. We're gonna paint up the control arm, maybe even the spring. Let's see if these will just walk out. That's popping out the rubber on this side. Okay, there's that. We'll pull this whole assembly out. Here's the washer. This side should be just a couple of whacks and it's out. There we go. Next, we're gonna go ahead and pull this bumper out. This should just come out by hand. We'll see. Or rip out by hand. Alright, next. Just like that. There we go. It's just the control arm. What I'm doing is I'm going to paint the body of the shock here. But I gotta mask off the label because I want to keep the label on. It's not going to look 100%, but I'm going to try to get it as close as I can. Yeah. Got fresh parts ready to go on, and I got freshly painted parts for them to go on too. I'm using Mavotec control arm bushings, so I'm going to take a look at these bushings. They were saying that these bushings are slightly different sizes. One of these bushings that don't fit. Yeah, okay. So yeah, this guy goes back here. I marked it, like I said, I scored it. This is 1, so number 1 side. Not really much painted on the inside, you're not gonna really see that. Next thing we're gonna get is a hammer. It's driving it in there. We got a little bit to go though. It's slowly going in. It's gonna take a little bit. Yeah, the tiniest bit of progress versus all this mess that I just started. And we still got 3 more. Okay, took me about probably like an hour or so, but I finally have a solution. It's not pretty, but it'll do the job. Basically, gotta cut off the excess rubber, and then I have this rudimentary press over here. Gotta clean up the threads on it, and it should be golden. We should be able to put all these bushings in, and all we gotta do is just cut the rubber, and maybe we can actually reduce the amount of scratching and damaging that took place here. Yikes. Let me grab something to lube up these threads. We should be good. Alright, so I have some bar and chain oil. This should be what the doctor ordered. Oh, he got beat up big time. It's gonna definitely need some love before I go ahead and say that's ready to go in. But at least now I figured out what has to be done to get this to fit properly. Oh yeah, we're gonna need to touch up the paint big time. Maybe we'll even just go ahead and just paint over all this out here on the outside. There we go. Upper control arm bushings are installed in a very messed up way, but they are in. Be able to put in the ball joint and continue on this project. Well, we are in the final stretch. All the parts have been painted actually. Not most, but all have. So, we basically gotta put it all back together. So we have beautifully painted lower control arm. It's dead blow and pry bar. Now, just like with the passenger side, these nuts are gonna go from the inside. Ah! Yeah, that's gonna be easy. Okay, 1 and done. Alright, now we need to find all the hardware to tighten this back up. This whole car is pretty much just stock black and rust. So all these parts in here that are suddenly painted blue are gonna be definitely out of place. It looks so good that I'm gonna feel bad once I start putting parts on it and all the parts start scratching up the paint. Now, yeah, that's what I want. So yeah, in here, the shock and the spring is gonna go in. And we'll put that spring in right now. I have new spring insulators. We're gonna go with it. Alright, now here's the part I was talking about. The part where paints start to get damaged. Alright, this is the last video for the day. I'm gonna have to do an update tomorrow. This is my condition right now. It's starting to get dark, and I need to finish at least the bottom half. So we'll be back in the morning.
Day 2.
So last night I was able to get the spring in and I get the shock on, so this is all being held up. So now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna jack this control arm back up, and then we're gonna start putting on the spindle. Actually, we're gonna put on the upper control arm and then finally put on the spindle. So ball joint, start putting it back together. Shouldn't be too long, hopefully. There we go. That's the one thing we at least need is for it to be somewhat loose, so we can put it on and make sure it's all aligned underneath. Which, I mean, I have no tools to do the alignment on this upper control arm, so just kind of play it by ear. And so far, I have aligned it before, and it was pretty decent. Now, we're finally at the point. I'm going to put on the upper ball joint. It's got a blue boot for the ball joint here. Okay, there we go. And finally, I mean, cotter pin will go in there and get bent around, pulled in place, but this is all ready to go. Put the tie rod back in, and then all the other hardware will come on, and the wheel is almost close to coming back on now. So here we go. This is all packed and ready to go back in. And finally, we got some brand new sway bar links.
Day 3.
So with the passenger side, I already went ahead and put it all together. And I already went and packed the bearing. I pulled out pretty much this guy, the outer bearing. So we can go ahead and we're going to do that really quick. Do this the old-fashioned way here. Learned how to do it. Pretty much gonna just take it in my hand. Just try to pack all this. So up here, it comes out, the grease that starts to push out. This is kind of a tedious process because you got to push this against your palm, and the grease is all over your hands. You see a little bit start to come out, but yeah, afterwards your hand feels kind of raw from pretty much running a machine surface up against your palm of your hand. I mean, this project was time consuming only because parts were painted. Again, you know, a lot of cleaning was involved, and then especially with the upper control arms, it's better just to replace the ball joints and the bushings themselves than spend, I think, what, like $180 or $190 for just one control arm. We'll go ahead and get this out of the way really quick. Just put that there for a second. Get the grease out, put my hands up, and we'll put this rotor on. Alright, so we can go ahead and spin the rotor until it stops. So while we're spinning the rotor, we're tightening the nut. So now we're going to do that. I think it's 1/6 of a turn, at least straight up. A little loose, so right there. There we go. Put this cotter pin back in. Bring this around to the side. This whole bag of hardware here is the sway bar link. This and the caliper are the only two real easy parts of putting this all back together. In general, putting it back together isn't easy. It's just time consuming, especially with this upper control arm. And you see on these, there's a little bottom section here, kind of like a little hat. That's what goes into the hole. Yeah, drive the bolt through. Alright, last but not least, we gotta put on the caliper. Trying to clean up these bolts because the caliper slides on it. I'm gonna try to keep these clean as much as you can. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna coat these ends here with some grease. Not a lot of grease is needed. I got this much right here, and all I'm gonna do is just pretty much spin these two around each other. So this doesn't come with any clips to hold this back pad in place. All you really have is just these two little nubs on there, just keeping it, you know, somewhat center. Question mark. All right, first try, got it in. All right, run that through both of them. All right, there it is. All right, and now the tires are back on. So went around the block just to test it out and see what was up, and it's much more stiff. It has more confidence in the steering. So in the back here is all the trash that came from this job. And I toss that. Everything's just about to put up. We'll go take a look underneath the hood. So you can see there is the control arm. The blue does make it noticeable. It's kind of aligned. Hopefully after this, take it to a shop and get it professionally aligned. Other things just to note, I got a brand new battery cable, and I fixed a vacuum leak. So hopefully I just upped the reliability, and Wagon should be able to continue on.